Welcome to the Hope and Focus podcast, where hope has a voice. We highlight the journeys of those impacted by Leber congenital amaurosis and other inherited retinal diseases, and the work driving change. Thanks for being here.
Welcome, everyone, to the Hope and Focus podcast. I'm your host, Ben Shaberman. I'm VP of Science Communications with the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I'm also an advisor to Hope and Focus. And we are delighted to bring you this new podcast with conversations about the LCA journey. We'll give you some updates on research on occasion. We'll have discussions with unique and influential personalities and a whole lot more. And for this episode, I'm really looking forward to conversations with two impressive young people. They're Elle St. Arnaud and Jack Morris. And these young people aren't letting vision loss from retinal diseases get in their way as they embark on some exciting, new, and ambitious journeys. I'll be talking with Jack and Elle about a number of topics, including what's coming up for them in their lives, but we'll also be talking about advocacy, self-advocacy, relationships, how they approach challenge and failure, and a lot more will be discussed. And while we'll undoubtedly talk about their vision loss, I think there will be some universal themes and truths that anyone can really glean from these conversations. So first, I'd like to introduce Elle. She grew up in Chicago and has LCA caused by NPHP5 mutations, and she's about to begin her freshman year of college at Boston University to study political science and economics with the hope of becoming a lawyer. And Elle was quite active in high school, having participated in debate, the Model UN, various sports like cross country, skiing, and rock climbing. And she's just a very ambitious and active young woman. So, welcome to the podcast, Elle. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. And so next, I'd like to introduce Jack. Jack grew up in St. Louis, and he recently graduated from Brown University, and excitingly will be studying neuroscience in Paris this fall. And Jack has retinitis pigmentosa, and interestingly, he's pursuing neuroscience to study the resilience and adaptability of people with disabilities. And Jack says he has seen a change for the better in his life by embracing his own identity as a person with a disability. So, Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ben. It's good to see you. And hi, Elle. Glad to be here with you.
Well, thanks, Jack. And again, it's great to have you both for this conversation. And so I'd like to start off, and perhaps Elle first, I'd like to start off by having each of you talk about where you are in your life, your upcoming transitions. You're both going into a new stage of education. And maybe as part of that, or maybe you want to begin talking about your vision loss and what some of those challenges come with vision loss. So, Elle, what's top of mind in your life right now?
Yes, well, I just graduated from high school and I'm about to head off to college. So there are, of course, a lot of changes that come with that. I'm moving to a new city, meeting a lot of new people, starting at a new school. A lot of transitions are happening. Being blind, I think, makes some of it a little bit more challenging, like navigating a new place that I've never really been before. So I visited Boston this summer and worked with an orientation and mobility specialist to help me learn the BU campus and stuff like that. So I think it's important to be advocating for yourself and taking advantage of any services that are available to help make transitions. So I'm very excited for the coming weeks.
That is very exciting. And do you feel like you have a good understanding of the layout at Boston University? Did you kind of get a good head start understanding where you need to be and how to get there?
Yeah, I think now I have a pretty good understanding of everything that I need to know, where all the important places are. Yeah, for me, the main challenge with my visual impairment comes in the form of navigating because I don't have any peripheral vision pretty much, so I use a cane, and anytime I'm walking somewhere, it's, like, a little bit more difficult, might take me a little bit longer, so just kind of have had to accept, like, sometimes it will take me a little longer to cross the street or to walk somewhere.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like you're in a good position to arrive at BU and get going. So, Jack, you're on your way to Paris, and I feel like it's Elle who should be going to Paris with the name Elle St. Arnaud,
Right.
It's very
not
fun.
Jack Morris. I mean, that sounds very British or something. Anyway, enough of my silly humor. Jack, I'm excited for you going to Paris, and it is Paris, correct?
Yep, you get that right.
And I know you were going to France. I just kind of assumed Paris. And so what are your expectations and things that are top of mind as you get ready to go to France and embark in your next educational experience?
Yeah, well, my vision, I'll start with vision, has been changing a lot in the last couple of years. I have RP, as you said, and so started my life with pretty darn good vision, and my peripheral vision has been slowly constricting since that time. My acuity is a little worse than it was, and reading is a little bit tougher than it was, things like that. And so last time I was in Paris, I had some big changes to my vision and was experiencing some new symptoms and have only recently started my journey with really claiming this identity and using a cane and using a screen reader and all these things. So I actually learned to navigate Paris when I studied abroad there last year, sort of masquerading as a sighted person. And I got to know the metro and all that stuff. And I'm really excited to use the cane as the signaling device that it is in the metro and things like that, just to show the world, like, hey, I'm a low vision person, and I need to get around too. And I think the cane has been really helpful for me in just kind of giving people a little reality check, just like slow down a little bit, and we can all pay attention and take care of each other as we're moving about. So I'm excited to make that a part of my life in Paris. I'm also starting school at a new university, and so have been working with their accommodation staff to get all those things set up. And it's been a little daunting figuring out the system in a new country, but I have found people to be very receptive and have a meeting set up for my first week on campus. So I'm feeling very excited.
That's great. And this may be a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you pretty fluent in French?
I was
Yeah,
hoping that too.
yeah. Yeah, I've studied French for a long time. And, I think perhaps because of the vision loss, my ear has gotten really good. And so I'm told a lot that I have a good French accent when I speak French. And I think something about having low vision has made my ear sort of more attuned to it. So speaking French is one of my, like, the great pleasures of my life. I'm really excited to be able to speak it full time again.
That's cool. And is your program that you're in neuroscience that you're going into, is that gonna be largely in French?
So it's actually in English. It's English is
Okay.
sort of, the international science language. So the program's in English, but will be steeped in French.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Hmm.
Yet another challenge with the move to a new school.
Totally.
The the other thing from my personal experience, I was in Paris a couple years ago, and I know there's a lot of, like, cobblestone.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah.
a little challenging or problematic?
Well, we're gonna have to see. I didn't use a cane at all the last time I was there, so time will tell. But you're certainly right, especially in the neighborhood that I'm gonna be in, the Latin Quarter. There's a whole bunch of cobblestone. And so I think it'll be a challenge for the cane, but a challenge that I'm feeling up to. I've done a lot of cane training in the past few months, so I feel like my skills are up to the challenge.
Cool. Cool. That's great. So it sounds like both of you are in a good space, both logistically and emotionally, for making your big transitions, at least
Mhm.
from this conversation. I'm sure you have some moments of trepidation, but I'd like to go back in time and talk about your childhood and what it was like to be a kid with low vision and how that impacted your life at school and your social life, doing athletics or doing fun things with friends. And Jack, why don't you start us off in that conversation?
Yeah, it's funny to be a kid with low vision. A couple of stories come to mind. I'll just tell one is that I was on a swim team for several years, and I think swimming, first of all, is a great sport for low vision people because all you've got to see is the big T at the bottom of the pool. And I loved swim team, but I also just had a lot of anxiety surrounding it. I was a really anxious kid. I still carry some anxiety with me, but when you're a kid, it's really hard to sort of understand what's going on, and so my anxiety would get placed in sort of sources you wouldn't think are actually the source of the anxiety. So when I was on swim team, I was always super concerned about storms. I was always so anxious that there was going to be a thunderstorm or there was going to be lightning or something bad was going to happen. And if there were any clouds in the sky, I would always get worked up about there being a storm coming. But as I reflect on it, it's clear to me that the real thing that I was worked up about was having to navigate without my glasses and walk towards the blocks at the swim meet. And as the sun set and the lights turned on, I couldn't see as well. And so I was scared about that. And so the anxiety that can come with low vision mixed with the sort of young brain that's not really ready to understand what's going on definitely was sort of tough. But I think I can also laugh about that and feel some compassion towards myself at that time because although it was a little bit tough at points, I still loved it so much and made some of the best friends. But yeah, some funny directions for the anxiety.
That's great. And I think you said something that's really important for all of us. One of those universal lessons is to have compassion for yourself. We all have limitations and we all have anxieties, whatever they are. And sometimes it's just okay to, you know, embrace the anxiety. So
Hmm.
I'm glad to hear you figured that out. It sounds like at a fairly young age. Did the other people on your swim team know you had low vision?
I'm trying to think. I think I had a few buds on the swim team that knew. A lot of my friends knew growing up, my closer friends. But it was certainly something that I tried to make as little a part of me, publicly as I could. I didn't use the cane until this past year, which looking back, I wish I would have started using it 8 years ago or something. But, middle school is hard for everybody. And it's definitely taking on that extra identity marker is also hard. So that is something that I feel grateful to be navigating more gracefully now, but was tough when I was younger.
Certainly, certainly. And with RP, you had more of an opportunity to mask it. It
Absolutely.
sounds like because you probably had still pretty good central vision and
Hmm.
especially vision in a lighted setting. Where conversely, if we can move over to L, with LCA, you kind of start off life with pretty significant vision loss. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, that's definitely right. I think Jack has gone through the probably more difficult experience of losing his vision later in life because you get used to living a certain way and then you suddenly can't do some of those things anymore. You have to adapt more. Whereas for me, I've always had pretty much stable vision. So, like, no peripheral vision, like, limited ability to see far away, very limited sight in darkness, that type of thing. But yeah, I've been pretty stable my whole life, meaning that as a kid, I never really could mask it or anything.
And how was that socially? Were you in a school with mostly sighted kids?
Yes, I was the only sighted kid in our school except for my older brother who was also blind. Socially, there were a lot of things where it would be difficult for me because I never wanted to be different from the other kids. I always wanted to do sports, but I couldn't. Like, baseball, basketball, really hard for someone with no peripheral vision, but I always wanted to be able to do those types of things. I hated gym class a lot because, like, the whole class is playing like volleyball and I like can't see the ball whatsoever. So that kind of made it tough, but that meant that like I always had to be very open with talking about my blindness to other people just because there were so many ways like during my daily life that it would become apparent. And then like I wanted to sort of as a younger person, I always wanted to blend in with the other kids as much as I possibly could. Like in elementary school, I used to have a paraprofessional, which is like an adult who works with you through the whole school day. And I never liked that because I was like, all these other kids don't have an adult by them and I have to. And that makes me feel different, which I didn't like. And I don't know, I felt like sometimes it was harder to make connections with other kids when you have this adult right next to you. It's like a little bit more awkward. But I still met some amazing friends doing elementary school that were still like great and never cared about any of that stuff. Yeah, and I think there are also a lot of cool parts about growing up with blindness. Like at my school, I got to teach my classmates Braille. We did that as like a lesson one day where I would just teach all the other kids in my fourth grade class Braille. So that was really cool. I liked that I had something unique about myself. But yeah, so there were definitely times where you feel like you're a little bit different from everybody else. And as you get older, I think for me at least, I learned to accept that a lot more.
That's great. I love the idea of teaching your fourth grade peers Braille. Did they kind of embrace it? Did they have fun with it?
Yeah, people thought it was very cool. They latched on. They were like, "Wow, this is very cool." And, like, when you grow up as a blind kid in an elementary school, people have a lot of questions for you. So I always got asked a lot of interesting questions. Like, people were like, "Do you read Braille left to right?" Which for me seemed like a very obvious answer, but I never really thought about it. Like, of course, if you don't know Braille, you're not gonna know stuff like that. People would ask me like, "Wait, you keep your eyes open even though you're blind?" Or people would ask me like, can you echolocate like a dolphin? Which some blind people actually can, so that wasn't a weird one, but yeah, I think people always have a lot of questions when you're whether it's teaching them Braille or if they're just around you, but I think being open to answer those questions makes it a way more comfortable situation for everybody.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
I just want to echo that too. As a person with similar vision, but still significant vision loss, I've had a lot of questions too about like, what do you see? Because it's sort of confusing that like I'm blind, but I'm also like writing with a pencil and I can read my handwriting, stuff like that in school. And what I've found is that questions may seem like they're like digging in or being nosy or being making fun, but every time people ask questions like that, my experience is that they just want to understand, and so it's been uplifting to realize that people just want to know how it is, and that we can share that with people.
Yeah, I always felt like questions sometimes were like, because of course, like if you don't want to be different when you're younger, it's like you don't like that people are asking you questions because the sighted kids aren't being asked those questions. I remember one time in fourth grade, some kids were asking a couple questions, and then my teacher like had me stand up in front of the whole class and explain my visual impairment. And at the time, I was mortified by it, but then I realized, kind of like what Jack was saying, as I got older, like it's actually a really good thing that people want to know about it, and it actually will make you feel like less alienated and less different if you do answer those questions, like Jack was saying, because if you answer those questions, they see that, oh, you're just a kid just like them. You just have this little thing.
That's great. And I'm just wondering, it sounds like both of you have had overall pretty positive interactions with your peers growing up. Were there moments where you felt embarrassed or bullied or some really dark moments? Hopefully, if there were, they were relatively infrequent. Did you have a strategy or a way to get through those if you had them?
Yeah, there were definitely times of embarrassment. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, in college too, like going to dark parties and, just like you got to go and have fun and do what kids do. Like that's the moral of the story is go keep living your life. But I've definitely had lots of moments where I feel like I've made a little faux pas or like didn't recognize somebody who I definitely should have recognized. Like one time we were at, I guess it was a homecoming dance in high school, and I had a conversation with this person and they were like really sweet. And I was like, okay, cool. It's great to see you, whatever. Had no idea who it was. And the next day, my sister came up to me in the morning and said, "Did you know you were talking to me last night?" And I said, "I had no idea it was her." And so stuff like that, that was a funny one. But, these things happen, the ones that feel more uncomfortable than funny too. And honestly, a huge thing for me has been meditation and mindfulness. I feel like it's so easy to just feel things and sort of run away from the uncomfortable feelings. But I practice mindfulness really often and have learned how helpful it is to just feel the things that we're feeling and how much that helps with actually processing things and being able to sort of meet ourselves where we're at emotionally. So that's been a huge, huge strategy for me is meditation.
That's really cool. So when you say mindfulness, does that mean kind of in the moment stopping and just thinking about where you're at, where your emotions and your head are at? Is that part of it?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think a lot of times we think about it as just something that, people do sitting cross-legged on their meditation cushion, but in fact, my experience with it is that, and I think lots of people will echo this who do it, is that you practice for a few minutes a day formally, you sit quietly and feel your body, feel your breath, things like that. And then the goal is to be able to transfer that out into the world and live a life where you pay attention. And the big motto is to respond to situations rather than just react to them. So sometimes I will feel fearful, like if it's dark at night or something like that, and my body will be very tense and things like that. But if I can find mindfulness in that moment to just come back and remember, the stability that I have in my body, things like that, it feels very helpful to just keep a level head and bring my stress back to baseline.
Right, right. And I think that practice can help you with not only, vision loss issues, but anything in your life, whether,
Absolutely.
it's a teacher, your girlfriend, whatever. You just need a moment to kind of get your head together to get through whatever is happening.
I totally agree.
Elle, do you find that that's a good way for you to cope? What do you do when things kind of get a little challenging or emotionally difficult?
Yeah, I think like Jack, I've had plenty of embarrassing moments, plenty of not recognizing people, plenty like running into doors and stuff like that with the no peripheral vision. I think mindfulness is really important because you have to remember in the moment that it's not your fault. Like I'll run into someone's chair or something and I'll like apologize and my friends will be like, remember, like obviously of course it will feel embarrassing in that moment, but just remember it's not your fault. There was nothing you could have done about it. So there of course will always be embarrassing moments. Those will never go away, but you just have to be mindful of like this is gonna be fine. It's not a big deal. People are understanding and they're not gonna hate a blind person for doing a blind thing. So, yeah, I think
Mhm.
being mindful and remembering this is like it's not your fault when you make one of those blind related mistakes.
Right, right.
That's so wise. It took me so long to realize that I held on to it being my fault for so long, but you're so right, Elle.
Me too. I was always like, how can I minimize my mistakes? How can I minimize running into chairs or whatever? And it's like you can kind of try to do that, but ultimately you're gonna always be making mistakes. They'll never fully go away. You just have to learn to accept them more.
Interesting. So you're both embarking on new educational experiences. Elle, I presume you probably could have gone to a college near home. You could have maybe even stayed at home, whatever, but you chose to go to a Boston, a whole new environment. And Jack, you're now going to Europe, to France, and going to a whole big new environment. Do you think your vision loss has made you a more adventurous, a risk-taking person or people? Do you feel like you've developed maybe a little more courage? And I asked that of both of you. Maybe Elle, as you think about, I realize you've always had significant vision loss, so you don't know what it would have been like to be a normally sighted person. But do you think it's made you a little braver?
It's true that, like, I have nothing to compare it to because I've never been sighted, but I think I'll try to take a stab at it. I would say I always wanted to, like, live my life in such a way where I would live it the exact same way that I would live it as a sighted person. So I would never want to say no to doing anything because I was scared of doing it because of, like, the fact that I was blind, for example. So, like, I did cross country in high school, and I didn't want to not do sports and stuff like that just because I was blind. So in a way, I tried to live my life in the exact same way that I would as a sighted person. And I think because of that, I just am forcing myself to be as bold as I can be all the time because I'm trying to just do everything that I can. I think if I were sighted, again, I don't know. I think as a blind person, I also always want to go against any sort of stereotypes that people might have about blind people. I want to show people that I can be social, that I can do successful things and stuff like that. I think sometimes when you meet new people as a blind person, they sort of might treat you a little bit differently at first. Like for me in high school, sometimes I'll meet people and they'll be like a little less like warm towards me, or like might be a little bit hesitant to talk to me compared to sighted students. But then as soon as they get to know who I actually am, that's like never an issue. So I think for me, being like confident in myself has always been really important. And I think maybe being blind has made me more adventurous just because I want to like prove wrong anybody who thinks that a blind person can't do that. That might sound a little bit cliche, but I do think that's how I try to operate.
That's a really great attitude and advocacy strategy, advocating for yourself to do whatever it is you want to do. And if I can say so, you come across very confidently
Think
the little time I've known you. So good work on that.
thank you.
So Jack, do you think you're perhaps a little bolder in your life than you would have been had you
Yeah.
not had vision loss?
Well, I'm thinking about it now, and though I can't compare to, a perfectly sighted version of myself, I can definitely look back at myself with more vision. And I think, especially in this last year, as my challenges have become more significant, that I have totally become more adventurous. And I think that it actually is sort of inversely related to the amount of vision that I have. I think for so long I was trying to be normal, and my vision was worse, but it was sort of close to normal. And so I was like, okay, I need to be normal at this. I need to be good at baseball. I want to be a great hiker and not have to use hiking poles and things like this. I was striving for this ideal of like succeeding in a sighted way when I wasn't a fully sighted person. And in this past year, I feel like I've just totally shifted the goalpost and become so much more comfortable with trying things and them not having to work. And so, Ben, I really like that you use the word adventurous, because I feel like we get to define what an adventure is in that word. And so, like this year, it's sort of been an adventure to be like, okay, I'm going to try and play football with my friends. And I don't really know if that's going to work or like whether I'm going to be any good, and that's okay. And one of my favorite memories from my last month of college was playing two-hand touch football with my buds, and like remembering the silliness that comes with that. And so recently I definitely have felt more adventurous and more bold. But for the longest time that was not the case for me. And I feel like as I've embraced my identity as a blind and low vision person, it's been so huge for me to get over those moments where I do feel scared and kind of stuck in my shell, and be able to break out of that and just accept what comes, whether it's sort of like the traditional metric of success, or whether it's my own version of success, or whether something just doesn't work at all.
I like
I
how you said, oh, sorry, you go ahead.
No, please, Al.
I like how you said that you get to define what an adventure is as a blind person, because sometimes things that are not difficult at all for a sighted person can definitely be like quite an adventure for a blind person. Like for me, like the first time I went into Starbucks by myself, for example, it could be an adventure because that could be something that's more difficult for me to do navigation wise. And I like what Jack said about like it does tend to make you more adventurous also just because maybe more things will actually feel like adventures because more things will be more of a challenge, and so it'll feel like more of a success when you complete it.
That's a great perspective. That's a great perspective. I feel like I'm much older than both of you, but when I was your age, I don't think I was nearly as confident or mature because maybe I just didn't have to overcome or deal with the same challenges. Things maybe came a little easier, and without the barriers and the challenges, you just kind of glide along. But I think your experiences have really made you into pretty mature, confident people. And Jack, with your educational pursuit, you're going to become a real expert in embracing your vision loss because you've already done so much of that. But to actually like dedicate your career to understanding identity with a disability like vision loss, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, that's the plan, man. I appreciate that. It's sort of a paradox. It's funny because like if there was a cure tomorrow to cure retinal degenerative diseases, I would totally take it. But I also am so grateful to have had this winding, sort of roller coaster of a journey, and I'm so happy that it has been a part of my story. And again, I hope we find a cure, and also I know that it's going to be okay if we don't.
That's a great way to put it. And we're working on the cure.
Yeah, I know you got it covered, Ben.
So, but it's great that you have a healthy, realistic perspective on the future. So to wind things down, I wanted to talk a little bit with you both about your parental relationships and how over the years you've kind of worked in partnership with your parents to take on some of the low vision challenges. Elle, do you want to start off? I know you have a brother who's also affected, so that kind of adds to the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, I think when you have especially when you have a brother, although what I'm about to say can definitely be true without, but having another blind person in your house sort of means that the entire house will just adapt to blindness. So, like, every staircase we have has a rug near the end so that we don't accidentally fall off. Our microwave and our oven are brailled. Our laundry machine has little stickers on it so you know where the right buttons are. My parents have done a great job of adapting pretty much everything about their lives in order to help us. Beyond all of that, they've also just really pushed us to be independent. They've gotten us involved in tons of clubs and summer camps, some for blind kids, some for everybody. They know that being social is incredibly important. You have to get your kids to be doing all the same activities that their sighted counterparts are doing, especially when they're little and might not have the initiative to do it on their own. So yeah, I think my advice for any parents listening would be to make sure that your kids are getting involved and, like, pushing them to do the things that sighted kids would do. That includes, like, around the house, make sure your kids can do all the same, like, life skills that all the sighted kids can. But then at the same time, you don't want your kids to be compared to sighted kids. You don't want your kid to be like, "Oh, you can't, like, put stuff in the oven by yourself yet." Well, your friend who's your same age can. Like, sometimes things will move at a little bit of a slower pace for a blind kid, and that's just something that you gotta understand.
Sure, sure. Do you think there were moments when your parents were a little too overbearing, or were they, for the most part, encouraging? You kind of said that already, that they encouraged you to take on challenges and do as much as you can.
No, I think my parents are great. There was never a point where they were too overbearing or too pushy or anything. They were always just encouraging us to be able to live the lives that we wanted to have. Yeah, I think it's important for parents not to hover too much around their kids just because you want them to be able to go places on their own and stuff like that. But my parents never had an issue with it. They were always amazing at keeping us safe while also urging us to be independent.
That's great. That's great. Jack, I kind of know your parents, so I kind of know the answer, but can you tell the rest of the world?
Yeah, yeah. Well, as Ben knows, and lots of other FFP folks know, I've never doubted for a second that my parents would just give up whatever to make sure that I'm in the best position that I can be with my vision and just with, my life. I really appreciate how selfless my parents have been through this whole thing with myself and with my sister. I think emotionally, my parents were also fantastic, and they made sure that I was going to be safe physically, and they made sure also that I was going to have allies in the classroom. We always talked to my teachers beforehand and made sure everything would be set in place. I didn't have an IEP, which folks should get if they have access to that in public school.
And that is, for people who don't know,
Oh my
IEP.
gosh, I'm pretty sure it's independent education plan, but Elle, will you or
That sounds right
individualized?
to me.
I-
Yeah.
Just in case people aren't familiar with that.
Is it individualized? Then
I
yeah.
think it might be individualized, but I think you got the gist down. It's basically just like a meeting where and just a plan of what accommodations you need and some goals for you to reach by certain ages and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I didn't have an IEP because we could just work with folks and my vision was pretty good, especially when I was very young. So my parents were always fantastic at acknowledging what problems were in front of us and helping to resolve those problems. And one thing that I think is probably the biggest challenge for a parent is to understand that sometimes there are hard moments and that it's important to acknowledge those hard moments and also solve the problems that come with them. So if I had to give one tip for the next parents coming up, though I have no ground to stand on as a person who's so young, it would be if you can find the strength to allow your child going through vision loss to feel what they feel, the hard things and the good things, and understand that that allows us to grow emotionally and to accept ourselves and understand our resilience because it's the hard stuff that allows us to become resilient and stand up to the difficulties. So that's one of the things that I imagine must be really hard for parents that emotionally I think is important.
That's so
Mhm.
eloquently put.
I appreciate
Really,
that.
really
I've been working on it.
impressive. I don't know that many mature adults could say it that well, but I think that's really well put. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm finished with my questions that I had. I think this has been a really wonderful discussion. And I feel like I want to have you both back in a couple of years to hear how you're doing in your various pursuits, educational pursuits. Before we close, if there's anything you wanted to add that maybe we didn't talk about, I know we talked about a lot. If not, that's totally fine. But any final remarks, Elle?
Yeah, just a couple things kind of to reiterate on some points we hit on earlier, but I think one thing I wanted to stress was that everyone who is blind and growing up that way should be comfortable and okay with talking about their blindness to other people. So if people are asking you questions, like be prepared to answer. And one thing that's helped me a lot is like making jokes about it, making light of it. So that way your blindness isn't some elephant in the room that people are afraid to address or afraid to talk about. If you're making jokes about it and making light of it and freely talking about it, it'll make it a lot easier for you to ask for help from others. And you also just try never to be afraid to ask for help if there's some accommodation that you need, even if it's something different than all the kids around you. It's totally okay. It's totally fine if you have to do things at a slower pace or in a different way than your sighted counterparts. And yeah, just don't be afraid to accept your blindness, talk about it a lot, like especially from a young age. I think that would have helped me a lot. Yeah, just be comfortable talking about it.
That is wonderful advice. Jack, any parting words here?
Yeah, this is something that lots of things took me a long time to come around to, but this is a big one that I wish I would have come around to earlier, is talking to other blind people. I always I always thought it was weird to talk to older people that had RP or, have mentors and things like that because I don't know, it felt uncomfortable to me, and I don't know if I was ready for it when I was younger, but in these past few years that I have started to talk to folks with retinal diseases, it has just been heartwarming and also given me strength and confidence because it's a beautiful and unique and also tough sort of journey that we're on, but there's so many of us that are on it together. And so honestly, reach out to Ben. Ben will give you my information. I would love to talk to anybody. And if you can find folks that are going through it with you, there's lots of us and let's talk.
There is.
Absolutely.
There is. And both Hope and Focus and the Foundation Fighting Blindness have those opportunities to commune with others, whether it's at like a chapter meeting, the foundation. I'd be remiss if I didn't plug our United in Vision conference in June in Dallas in 2026. But I got to meet you both at the Hope and Focus meeting in Minneapolis a couple of months ago. And the irony is I didn't watch your panel because they had me doing something else. But that gave me the opportunity and the real pleasure to talk with you both now. So I just want to thank you both. I get a lot out of interacting with people who have vision challenges. And just in our short discussion today, I've really been inspired and learned a lot. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Good luck on your journeys. And again, I hope to talk to you in the not too distant future.
Of course.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And thank you, everyone who supports and is part of the Hope and Focus community. It's great to have you listening to the podcast, and we look forward to having you back for the next episode. Take care.
Whether you live with vision loss or love someone who does, this space is for you. To learn more about Hope and Focus and join us in advancing treatments for LCA, visit hopeandfocus.org and connect with us on social media at Hope and Focus 1. Together, we're bringing hope into focus.